What are you doing? Oh yeah, start pressing the right buttons. So
I know.
welcome back, everybody. Today we have with us She Van Fleet, who wrote the book Mao's America. She's talking about what she went through, and we'll have it on here. She's where are all my buttons today? Okay, there we go. And she went through, wrote through Mao's America, and now we have close to New York, where a man is running, is claiming to be a socialist, but really is that any different than communism? So first, thank you, She, for being on our show again today. It's great to talk to you again.
For sure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
First, let's start a little bit. Tell people, just in case they don't know who you are, and a little bit about your past.
Well, I grew up in South China. I spent my first 26 years in China, and I experienced the entire Cultural Revolution when I was in school. And later, I was sent to the countryside to work in the fields to get my re-education, according to Mao. Only after Mao's death, I was able to go to college to study English. And in 1986, I was able to come to America. So I did not really pay much attention to politics, but I started to notice things around me. But the turning point is 2020. I think it's true with a lot of Americans, and it's such a wake-up call. And at that time, I decided I got to do something. I can't just watch everything going on, because it is a repeat of the Cultural Revolution that I experienced 50 some years ago. So, and then in 2021, I went to a Loudoun County School Board meeting and gave a 1-minute speech, which, to my surprise, went viral. And then I was invited to talk and interview and everything. So in 2022, I decided to quit my job to write a book, because I can't explain the story and tell the whole story in an interview, 30 minutes here, and in a speech 1 hour there. And but anyway, a year later, 2023, I was able to have this book published, and I'm just so glad this book has. I have got a really good response, and people like you interviewed me for the book, and I think it is important for people to understand what's going on in America is nothing new, and it happened in China, happened to me, and I think it's important that people understand communism is here. It's no longer over there, and in Russia or in China, Vietnam, Cuba. Now it's here. It's not. Before I say it's our front door. No, it already entered our house. It's now at our dining table, at our breakfast table. They are here, and the communists are here, and we see it in the latest primary in New York City for mayor.
Yeah, this guy he's calling himself a socialist, but is there really a difference between a socialist and a communist?
Well, according to Karl Marx, according to Lenin and Mao, what is socialism? That is the initial stage of communism. And there's no country in the world is a communist country, according to that theory, because communism can be achieved when every country in the world become a socialist country. And that's when we enter the stage of communism. So in a way, communism is globalism. So globalism now is communism. And that's something that I think that I did not even think about. I did not even connect the dots until recently, especially when I started to write my book.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's a lot of arrogance here in America where we just don't, for some other reason, we're never taught about what communism actually is. We're taught a lot about the Nazis and fascism, but why do you think communism is never brought up?
Okay, because communism is so deceptive. We were not taught, because we have communists here. They want to use the same tactic, the same strategy, the same ideology, the same lies. To do what? To gain power. Okay, Nazi was upfront. It just said, we want to get rid of people we don't think is pure, and we don't want them to be among us. That's the Jews, right? They want to get rid of Jews, and they tell you, what do communists tell you? They want to liberate the marginalized people, the oppressed. They want to bring about social justice. They want to make the society more fair. Sounds familiar? They want to bring in DEI, equity, fairness, inclusion, and diversity, all this BS. It sounds so good. And but the goal is the same. Goal is the same goal as Nazi, as fascism, because they are all cousins. The goal is to control the people. The goal is to gain power, and that's exactly what it is. But that is why they use it, because it sounds so good.
One of the things that they're trying to use now in New York is all the free stuff. Have you seen this, like free rent, and they're doing free buses, and they're doing price control? And then now he's openly bragging about having government-owned grocery stores. So why all this stuff sounds so good? Why is all the free promises so bad for us?
Yeah, because it happened in every country that somehow they implemented communism. Every one of them. And so they say, oh, how about China now? China is economically developed. Yes. When did that happen? When did that happen? When the United States opened its door. When Nixon went to China thinking that he would use one communist country to fight against another, and then Jimmy Carter jumped into it and just established the relationship, diplomatic relationship. China is now developed because America has opened its market and let the communists steal our technology, and because communist China introduced limited capitalism. That's how it was saved from total collapse. By the time I left, by the time I was in the countryside, China was in total ruins in China. It's only after the United States, or the capitalist United States lend a helping hand. That's how China survived. Not only survived, now they grow powerful and rich, and now they become our number one threat.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And now it's trying to make its way from the east over to the west. And I never thought in my lifetime that we'd see an open communist running, and is very likely to be the mayor of the largest city in the United States.
Well, this is a 2024 repeat. 2024, almost half of the country voted for communism. They voted for Kamala. Okay, Kamala is a Marxist. There's no doubt about it. At least she was not as open as this guy, Mamdani, I guess that's how name is pronounced. Yeah, she was a little bit subtle about it. She is 100% communist, but she is, a little bit shy about it. But not this guy. No, he called himself a socialist. And so socialist is communist light. Socialism, communism, there's a very little difference. And his agenda is 100% communist, right? Government grocery store. And I tweeted something. Did you see my tweet? I have picture there of under Mao, when the government owned every grocery store. Long lines, empty shelf. And in 2017, I went to Cuba. Same thing.
Have you ever noticed anywhere in the world where socialism or communism has actually worked for the benefit of the people they claim to serve?
Well, you tell me. I don't know any.
I can't name a single one.
No, because as I told you, this is just a deceptive tactic to get people to follow them. And in China, they follow the communists using military armed, insurrection to overthrow the government, the sitting government, and gain power. Here, they use the same tactic. This time, it's not for it's not using armed forces, but you vote. And we can absolutely 100% vote ourselves into communism, give them all the power, and we can have a glimpse of what might happen to us in California, right? And now we have another one coming up in New York City. If this guy wins, and that is absolutely an opportunity for the New Yorkers to experience communism. So they're going to control everything. They're going to control rent. They're going to control food price. And then what they end up is that, and they're going to have long lines, and they're going to have no affordable housing, because that's what communism always delivers.
One of the things that I learned from talking to you was as often it's the parents who vote for the communism, yet it's their children that really suffer from it.
That's me. That's I think you remember our last conversation. I did not choose communism, and my parents and their generation chose communism because they believe that is the solution for China's problem, and that they absolutely believe that they joined the revolution, and they believe communism will make China a better place to live, and then they made that decision. And then by the time I was born, I absolutely found myself in, basically the slavery system, that I have no choice. I was told what to do. I was told I could not do this and that. I just have no choice, meaning I have no freedom. My life is controlled in where I can live, what I can do, what I can say, what I could think. That's how everyone's controlled. Your thought, your speech, your physical freedom, everything is controlled. So it's slavery. The owner is the party, the Chinese Communist Party. They own all of us.
Why is that? Why does communism lead to so much destruction?
Because, okay, so communism, the goal is to control, right? To control. If they allow people to talk, to think, then they lose control. If they allow people to have entrepreneurship, then they lose control. Everything is about the control. So, but that really led it to a dead end. So that's around the time of Mao's death. It's absolutely went to a dead end, and his successor Deng Xiaoping realized he had to do something. If he failed to do something, it's total collapse. So they did not have to worry, because Nixon offered help. And then Deng Xiaoping had this famous saying, black cat or white cat, doesn't matter. As long as cat mouse is a good cat, meaning whatever system. Right now, I just want to China to be saved. But they never give up the control. Now they control this the Chinese people through the so-called social credit system. That's digital totalitarianism. At the same time, now they're strong enough. Now they openly show their strength and challenge United States. Actually, it's very, very open that they intend to replace United States as the world's sole superpower.
If you could do real quick, if you could talk to people in New York and tell them why this New York mayor, even though he's promising so much free stuff, why it's so dangerous for them to vote for him.
If what I can say is that learn a little bit of history, what happened after people promised those things, what did they deliver? There's no one communist country, they deliver what they promised. The only way they can deliver, the only thing they can deliver is destruction, is poverty, misery, and destruction.
And never give up your freedom. So thank you so much, She Van Fleet, for coming on the show. And real quick, you want to tell people who you are and about your book and where they can find it?
Yeah, I am very active on X, so follow me. And my handle is XVANFLEET, X Van Fleet. And you can get my book in Amazon or any other major booksellers. And also, I want to tell you, my second book is coming out soon.
Oh, excellent. Is it up for pre-order?
It's not ready yet, but very soon. And this time, this book is very important because this book tells the story how America, United States, helped China to rise and to become our number one threat.
That sounds amazing. I'll keep an eye on it for X and everywhere else. And Leo's too. If you have not yet read Mao's America. This warning, it really opened up my eyes and helped many others too. So again, thank you, Shi, for coming on the show. And we're going to go take a quick profit break, and then we come back. We have another guest who's going to talk about her experience in Russian communism. So thank you, Shi, very much. We'll be right back after this greedy profit break. Well, communism was one of the big fights that we're going through right now, and there's something that's happening that I never thought would, is we have an open communist running here in New York City, and he's very likely could be the next mayor of New York. So next I have with me Julie Behling. She did a book and the documentary Beneath Sheep's Clothing, where she's going to talk about how these communists, they infiltrate our society and they promise lots of good stuff, but all they really bring is poverty, slavery, and death. So thank you, Julie, for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You tell a little bit about yourself and your documentary.
Yeah. So I'm the author of the book Beneath Sheep's Clothing, that you mentioned. We turned it into a documentary that came out last summer. It's a must-see. Honestly, like, to understand why did all these young white people, affluent people, vote for this guy? Why were they bamboozled by his socialist communist messages? We need to understand what's happened with our education system, with our culture. As Andrew Breitbart has said in the past, politics is downstream from culture. And, people are saying woke is dead. No, it lives on. Like, it's, first of all, it's still being propagated in the schools. Second of all, we have a whole generation that's coming of age now that is what they have been steeped in and is their ideology. And they are going to be making more and more of the decisions in our society. So we really need to understand how we got where we are if we want any chance of pulling back.
One of the things that they're trying to do with Zohran is they're trying to say that, he's not a communist, he's a socialist. But is there really a difference between the two?
Well, I mean, there's lots of different definitions for socialism and communism. And socialism is actually, communists call themselves socialists. Let's start with that. And the Soviet Union the name of the country was the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. So they actually never made it to communism. Communism is that utopic state that you enter after the stage of socialism. So socialism is meant to lead to communism. So we can even just leave it at that. So it's a danger zone. And, I was looking at his platform, Mamdani, and I can see why a lot of young people fell for it, who have been indoctrinated. And I don't want to direct my anger towards those individuals, because I'm hoping that we can convince some of them of the error of their ways. But just looking at his platform, we have the classic truth mixed with a lie. He's appealing to the squeeze that people are feeling financially, and we're going to cap rent prices, and we're going to freeze rent prices, and we're going to do all these things. We're going to lower your grocery bill. We're going to give you free childcare, and all these things. Sounds great. You get lots of promises of free stuff, but fewer and fewer freedoms in socialism and communism. And best case scenario, first of all, what are his qualifications to run a city like New York City? at best, someone with his level of background and skill should be like the mayor of a tiny town of a few thousand people. Like, that is absolutely insane. It's like someone going from the mailroom of a large corporation up to CEO in one fell swoop. So that's very disturbing. I looked at his background. He was a hip hop artist and a housing counselor. Those are his past qualifications. And I guess he was like in the state, whatever, government of New York also. But the guy really does not have any track record of showing that he's capable of managing New York City. Then if we have these grocery stores with these socialist grocery stores that he's talking about, best case scenario, it's going to be like the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles. Because what happens, this happened in the Soviet Union, it happens everywhere. Once you take away the profit motive, you end up with lazy, disengaged employees that don't really care to serve the customers because it doesn't matter to them. They're just going to get their paycheck regardless. So what they said in the Soviet Union is we pretend to work and they pretend to pay us. The DMV, you go there to get, your registration on your vehicle renewed. It's even worse when you move to a new state and there's just more procedures to go through. The people that work there are notoriously not engaged in their job, not super interested in speeding things up, and it's just not a pleasant experience. And I don't want to go shop at grocery stores like that. I mean, I don't live in New York City, but that's best case scenario. Worst case scenario is they're going to dry up the capital of the city because that's what communists do. They parasitize off the capital that other people raised and then disincentivize people because they can't raise capital. They put all these restrictions on the raising of capital and entrepreneurship activities. Those people will leave, and then there won't be any more capital to parasitize off, and then you're left with, disillusion. That's what happens every time. So that's kind of what we're looking at here.
I hear a saying where it says, the communists always run out of other people's money to spend.
Yeah. I mean, look at all the communist nations, North Korea, Cuba, communist China, they actually shifted because they had to get rid of the communist economic plan because it was destroying them. So they've taken on a more capitalistic economic plan. So that's why they're doing as well as they are. But it's concerning. And I'm actually putting out a new trailer for Beneath Sheep's Clothing for my documentary. I'm planning on putting it out tonight. That is really geared for people to see a little snippet of why what's happened with our education, what's happened with our culture. Why are we in this place that we're in? It's really important to understand how we got here, or else there's no chance to be able to shift gears, and no chance for us to be able to reach these young people if we can't tell them and show them that, how they have been misled in their education and in the culture that they were raised in.
Well, it sounds so good, right? Like the fruit on the tree where have, free bus rides, the government makes sure the grocery prices stay low. We'll make sure that they can't raise your rates, these evil capitalists. But it never works out that way. Why do you think that is?
Well, with socialism and communism, it's a maximum consolidation of power in a few hands. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. You reduce the incentive for people to excel and to innovate, and you end up with stagnation. Look, there are abuses of capitalism. Runaway capitalism without checks and balances is an abusive system as well. And human nature is what it is. There's always people that find a way to harm other people. But capitalism with proper constraints has led to the most prosperous and free society in the world's ever seen. I haven't seen a communist nation that's provided that for its people. You can't have, anytime you're giving more free stuff, you're reducing freedom. You can't maximize freedom and free stuff at the same time. You have to find, the right balance. I don't want to live in a society where we completely just disregard poor people. I would like to see more private individuals and churches kind of take that up as opposed to the government so much. But we have not taught our young people. It's been decades. We have not taught our young people to value freedom and to value what we have here. They've been taught to hate America. and see the American system as abusive. This is going to happen in other places, not just New York City. And it takes a while, it takes a while to build up a society that's functional, and then it takes a while to dismantle it. So, we wouldn't see the full fruits if this guy gets elected. We won't see the full fruits of what his policies will do for a while. In the meantime, I'm guessing this is going to be happening in other places, probably more big cities, blue cities in America.
They're definitely pushing that way. One of the things that I just can't understand is when they talk about free, well, nothing's free. Somebody has to pay for it, right? If you walk onto a bus for free, someone's got to buy the gas, right? Someone has to build the bus. Someone has to drive it. So who ends up paying for it?
Right. And certain people, I have actually one of my good friends who she was living in Oregon. And when her senior year in high school was after Bill Clinton had been elected, and they implemented a new test program at her high school. I think it was in all the high schools in Oregon, where they did away with grades. And my friend was like top performing student in her grade level. And then by the end of her senior year, she just gave up because everything was a group project. She was the only person in the groups that she got stuck in. She was the only one like really trying to do something with it. Other people were just like mooching off of her efforts. And she wasn't even getting a grade for it. It was just going to be a portfolio. So she's like, never mind, I'm not even doing this. So she just stopped even trying. So that's what happens when there's no incentive for people to excel, is the people who would excel don't in most cases.
It essentially creates a mediocre society, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
If you're, let's say you're Elon Musk and you can build electric cars and shoot rockets, but then you're treated the same as the guy that cannot, then what's your incentive to do so? Is it?
Yeah, it's crazy. But looking at this guy, Zohran Mamdani's platform, looking at his marketing, I really wonder who funded this guy. He's super young. Doesn't really have a track record. He's really harping on some things that validate the concerns of a lot of people. The solutions he offers are very concerning. And I don't know, how are we going to reach these young people? I guess it starts with parents of these young adults understanding what's gone wrong. I think that's where it starts. And I hope people will watch Beneath Sheep's Clothing. I think it offers a really important view into what our education system has done, what it is still doing. Trump is not going to be able to dismantle all of this himself. People in Washington are not going to be able to dismantle. We need to understand how the social and emotional learning in our schools is retooling our kids' ideological framework, deleting Americanism and Christianity, if those were the values that their parents had, which it is in many cases, deleting those from our children and inserting diversity, equity, and inclusion as the new foundational ideology, those are Marxist constructs that are designed to tear the fabric of our society apart under the guise of helping the oppressed. It's very, very, very sneaky and very, very dangerous.
It really is the poison fruit, isn't it? It
Absolutely.
Looks delicious, but
absolutely, yeah. And I have a niece and a nephew who live in New York City, both young adults, both in college, and I don't know. And another thing, I was looking at Mamdani's platform. He wants to bring in the mental health experts for community safety. And so he wants more defunding of police and more of the mental health brigade to go and deal with people. I'm not sure how the mental health brigade is going to be able to handle violent criminals. I'm not sure how that's going to work out for them. It's scary. And I even told my niece when she moved there, this is even like a few months ago, I was like, please get trained in self-defense and like carry pepper spray with you at all times. But yeah, it's crazy.
In your documentary, you go into that quite a bit, where you're talking about how it seems to always start in the schools. And everyone that I've talked to that's gone through and either lived through communism or studied it, it always seems to go back to the elite schools, right? It's not the poor and it's not the uneducated. It always starts with the best and the brightest in these Ivy League schools. Why do you think that is?
Oh, well, because the socialists that were funded by, like, let's say the Rockefeller Foundation in the early 20th century, they They went to the Soviet Union. John Dewey went to the Soviet Union to study their schooling there. They went to China and they experimented on the populace to see if they could retool the ideology of these Chinese peasants, which they could. They were very excited that they could. Then they went back into these universities. Columbia, University of Chicago are two prime examples. They went into those and managed and ran those colleges of education with all of this new understanding, with the goal to be able to strip off Christianity more from Americans and push things more towards socialism, using different, honestly, like Pavlovian techniques to retool the ideology. And it got much, much more intense with this transformative social and emotional learning, which is in, last time I checked, 98% of America's schools, including all of the schools in my local area, which is why I homeschool my 10-year-old. One of the reasons why I homeschool my 10-year-old. It is very slowly, and if you're not aware of what's going on, it is taking our children and turning them into these socialists and radicalizing, hyper radicalizing a certain percentage of them.
I'm with you. I guess what I'm trying to ask is, it doesn't start with like the people who are dumb or uneducated. It always seems to be like you're brought up where Chicago or Columbia or Harvard, right? It's always the high IQ, the really smart ones, the ones that should know better, but they're actually the ones that seem to want this the most.
Well, that's because they've been trained to view their privilege as a sin. And so they're trying to atone for their sin of privilege by becoming these radicals. That's why.
So it's just another twisted mixing truth with false.
Yeah. And that's what the social and emotional learning in the schools, that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to make people with privilege feel guilty. Look, I believe people of privilege ought to try to help other people who are less privileged. But this is a twisted version of that, an inverted version of that, where you need to go and tear down society and burn society to the ground, burn America's capitalist society to the ground because it's supposedly oppressive to some people. Even in the Soviet Union, it was the educated intelligentsia class that had felt guilty over their privilege that were the ones that became the hardcore Marxists, Bolsheviks. So it's the same pattern in lots of places. And then the people of less privileged are able to be radicalized within the schools oftentimes, and then the culture in general. And this has been happening for like 100 years, 100 plus years, all of this. It's been getting worse and worse and worse. And then Alex Newman, anyways, there's so much more. People need to watch Beneath Sheep's Clothing to get a fuller picture. The book also has a lot of great stuff in it. I don't know. I mean, it's not looking good, but we need more people to understand how this is happening, how this has happened in America. And we need people within local areas to go in and dismantle this stuff out of the schools. In the meantime, people need to homeschool their kids. If you don't want your kids turning out like these young people that just voted for this communist in New York City, then I highly recommend people homeschool their kids. Like, don't send them back to school in the fall.
You could speak to the people in New York, and I'm sure people are listening to this are from New York. How would you warn them and stop them and tell them that how much danger they're in? This is not free. This is going to cost you everything.
I always like to validate the legitimate concerns, and these young people are in a bad situation. It's going to be harder for them because of our economy, because of all of the things that have happened. It is harder to be able to get ahead as a young person and do well financially. It's harder to be able to buy a house, and people are angry about that. And there is more and more of an underclass. Some of that is just organic, but some of that has been done on purpose with all of these people imported to our country. Joe Biden opened up the floodgates. Hey, come on over and we'll hook you up with all the free stuff you need. In my tiny little town, my tiny little conservative town in southern Utah, we have people here now that speak languages. I don't even know where these people have come from. We don't have jobs or services for people like that here where I live. It's like, I don't even know how they ended up here, but it's every community. These people have been imported, and nothing against them personally. Some of them are criminals. Most of them are not. So this underclass has been imported. We just need to understand how this has all gone down And of course, Trump is doing his part, but that's by no means enough. Like, we need people in every community, every state to understand what's going on and take over their states. New York State, I'm not sure there's much hope for New York State and New York City. But the people who live there certainly have to try. So
we're down to betting on Eric Adams. I mean, I never thought I would be rooting for Eric Adams, but compared to Zohran.
Yeah, at least he wasn't a communist. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts and your expertise in all the study that you did in Russia. It's amazing how this isn't new. We had Van Fleet come on earlier, and she talked about what she went through in Russia. And then I highly recommend watching Beneath Sheep's Clothing. You see what happened to Russia. This is nothing new. This is history repeating itself over and over again. So thank you for coming on. And then before we go, if you want to tell people who you are, how they find you, and where they can purchase either your book or your documentary.
Yeah, people can go to beneathsheepsclothing.movie, and you can stream Beneath Sheep's Clothing online, purchase DVDs, and also grab my book. There's links there. We also have extended interview footage, which was amazing. We had hours and hours and hours of interview footage that we couldn't even include in the film, and that's available for people to purchase for a very small fee. Follow me on X. That's where I spend most of my time, at Julie A. Behling. That's Behling. Follow me on X. I'm going to be putting out my latest trailer that is specifically geared to show stuff that's going on in education and to show what the film, just a tiny portion of what the film addresses. But watch Beneath Sheep's Clothing. Please watch it and share it.
Yeah, as much as we can. I'll look out for that, and message me too when it comes out, and I'll make sure I'll put it on one of these commercial breaks. And speaking of commercial breaks, we have to go to another greedy profit break. So thank you very much, Julie, for coming on. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good night.
You too.
We're facing a threat in this country that I never thought that we would see. And this is that an open communist is now running to become mayor of the New York City. And he probably very likely will become the next mayor, as we're all the way down to Eric Adams against a blatant communist. And they'll try to say, no, he's not a communist. No, he's a socialist. Whereas we go through this thing, there is nothing different between the two. It's just one road to the other. See, all these isms, where they want to talk about socialism or liberalism, progressivism, all these isms, they always lead to communism. They always lead to you giving up your freedom in exchange for the government to rule over you. See, nobody would buy this. So that's why they have to offer all this free things to try to trick you into giving up your freedoms so that they can have power and permanent control over your life. It really is the poison fruit, right? It's the apple in the Garden of Eden. It sounds so good on the surface, right? The government will take care of you. Well, and there is some legitimate concerns here, which is part of what they lie when they mix these lies and then they mix in with the truths, because capitalism certainly isn't perfect. There is a lot of injustice in the world. But one of the worst things you can ever hear is for the government to come in and say that we're here to solve your problems for you. Because the government is not the solution for the problems. The government creates the problems. This is something that our founders understood very, very well. You can't have a society without a government at all. It just can't function. So they put as many restraints and many restrictions as they could to keep the government as limited as possible, to create a free society, to have as much decisions that go in your hand instead of somebody else's. Some useless bureaucrat out there. But many people don't see the end of the road, right? It looks so wide and so open. I mean, who doesn't want to ride a free bus, or who doesn't think that rent's going up or that groceries are too expensive? And when people see a problem, they automatically want to come to a solution. Makes sense. But the government, that's where they lie to you. See, they start with the truth that there's a problem, but then they lie to you with the solution. And so they say, give me up your freedoms and we will make things right. And we will make things just. But whether they want to call themselves socialists or progressives or all these other communists on the left, it always never, ever works out that way. It always works out with death, slavery, and poverty every single time. There's not a single exception to everywhere that socialism has been tried where people's lives haven't gotten better. The reason is very simple. It's so obvious, but it's hidden right in front of us. The people who get put in these places, they are not God. Right? And if you got someone that's way out in Washington, D.C. versus wherever you are in the world, right, why are they going to give a damn about you and your life? They're going to look at what anyone else look at, right? The bigger picture. And so these socialists, these communists, what do they always do? To give themselves power, they have to remove God and then replace it with government. And they got to remove the family and replace that also with government. See, every single time, that is your warning sign. The government expands. And we can look at it here in our own country, even though we're not to that point yet. We're right on the tipping of the iceberg. What has happened every time there's a problem? Right, they promise to expand the government and offer solutions. But what ends up happening? Worse, right? People get more poor, people lose more rights, and the government grows and it continues not to fix any of its problems. They instead make all these decisions for all the wrong reasons. This is why we have to stand up now, and this is why we have to fight for our rights. This is why we have to stand up, we have to fight for our freedoms. And this is the harder battle. This is the harder road for us. Because socialism sounds so good. The poison fruit, I mean, it looks sweet. If you tell somebody on one side of the road where you're going to work hard and you're going to suffer, you're going to work long hours, right? You're not going to get paid enough money. But if you work hard, right? If you save, if you invest, if you make good decisions, slowly over time, your life gets better and better and better. That's the polar opposite. That's the skinny path, but the thorns are very close. As opposed to the other side, the socialist side, where they have the path that's wide open, right? The golden road, the green grass, the flowers, all the pretty bushes, and it looks so sweet and so good. You know, just come down here, you got an easier life. You know, is your rent too high? Well, we'll lock the rent prices down. Or is groceries too expensive? You know, we'll just have the government, we'll have them buy the grocery stores, and then we'll make sure that your grocery prices, that they stay cheap. Or you can't go to work, well, you know, we'll provide buses and we'll make these buses free. Your kids are sick, you know, you just take them to the doctor, don't worry about it. And our medical staff will take care of it, no cost to you. It all sounds good if you don't think about it for 2 seconds. But the poison inside that beautiful fruit is that nothing is free. And the people who end up on top are always the wrong people. And so what happens is things don't stay cheap because the government can't run anything. You know what you do when you give the government $5 trillion? They spend $7 trillion. You know, when their regulations and the rules don't work, what do? They write more rules and more regulations, and then those don't work. And they write more rules and more regulations, and then those don't work. And then they start deciding along these equity lines. Okay, because here is this communist platform right here. Okay, this is what he's running on, and see if this sounds good and fair to you. Because look at all the things that he's promising here. And cash bail. So essentially the Democrats, right, for criminals. Keep criminals on the streets. Repeal the walking while trans ban, decriminalize sex workers, right? So marginalize women even more. Legalize marijuana, because when has that not gone wrong? Right? As people become essentially docile. Permit safe injection sites. Oh, again, more criminals, hardcore drugs. Restrict solitary confinement, enact elder parole, re-enfranchise and centering New York, and over and over and over again. It's targeting criminals over and over and over again under the false guise of equity. But what it really does is it collapses society. This is their hypocrisy, right? When he talks about he wants to defund the police, but then he gets personal security to protect him. Right? They tell you that you can't have any borders because you're a racist or you're a bigot if you won't let anybody into this country, but then they live behind their safe walls high up in their Ivy League towers. This is always the death of society through socialism. Is they promise you all these great things, but they instinctively know it doesn't work, so they make rules for you that are not for them. I mean, I challenge you, try to find a single country where socialism has worked. Find one where the utopia is real. You won't find it. There's a reason why all the people that live in these socialist communist countries, why they always run here to the United States to our freedoms. And you know all the communists and the Democrats on the left, when they always promise all these very good things and how bad America is and how evil America is and how capitalism is destroying society, well, the one thing you notice is they never actually leave. They talk about how great socialism and communism is, but when do they ever go to socialism and communism states? How many of these Democrat liberal elites are going to Cuba or going to Venezuela or going to China or going to Russia? They always come here and they want to, for some reason, not learn a lesson. They want to take away your rights and your freedoms under their false morality. You know, I think Julie really hit something on the nail there that isn't talked about enough. Where they're taught to be guilty, right? To feel like it makes so much sense now on the left, where they say all the time about how, you know, America is so bad and so evil and so unjust, right? We have to make it right. They are actually taught this falsehood. And there's always these people that they're outer directed. You know, they don't put the problems on themselves. The problem is always somebody else's on the outside. And this is what leads to all these issues. Is instead, because it is like we talked about earlier with the hard road versus the wide open road, where it's harder to say, you know, maybe I'm the problem. That's the bad news. But the good news is if I'm also the problem, then I'm also the solution. So my life is where it's at because this is where I've chosen to be. And I'm not saying that bad things don't happen or there's not, you know, consequences that are not a direct result of our actions, because those do happen. But a vast majority of the time, where we're at is because of the choices we made. A very easy way to look at it is money, right? How people choose to spend their money. When it comes in, this is something Dave Ramsey talks about all the time, right? People have all this money come in, and then they can't tell you 5 minutes later where it went. And then they wonder why they're broke. Because it doesn't really matter if you make $500,000 or you make $500,000 or $50,000 or $500,000. You can spend it. This is how somebody like Terrell Owens makes $100 million and then is broke, or Nicolas Cage or anybody else. Society works the exact same way. A majority of the time, the choices that you make in your life, probably not far, say like 95, 99% of the choices will have the most impact on your life, far more than anybody else does. But that's the skinny, hard road. That's the one that people don't want to accept. They want to blame outside forces. You know, how unjust the world is, or how the police did this, or the judge did that, or how their parents were bad. And maybe all of that can all be true, but it can also be true is how you react to it is what matters the most. So I hope New York learns their lesson. I can't believe we're down to the point where actually our side is working towards Eric Adams, who it was unthinkable just a few years ago. But this poison fruit of free that sounds so sweet and delicious will do none of those things, because the communist utopia never works. Your buses won't be free, your groceries won't be cheap, and your rent will not be price fixed, because somebody always has to pay. And that person is you. And socialism and communism, progressivism, liberalism, whatever ism they want to word it, it all leads to communism. It all leads to you losing your rights for the Democrat elite to have power over you. And the fruit of the free every single time is poverty, it's death for you, it's slavery. The freedom really is a mirage. It's not fruit. The free is chains. And I hope and I pray to God that New York learns first before it's too late for them, before the government, to pay for their free stuff, starts deciding who lives and who dies. Because that's where this path leads. Communism has killed more people than all the world wars combined. Because at the end of the day, it's not free. Somebody has to pay for it. And it's always paid in blood. And with that, the rest of the stuff is going to have to go back in the stack. We'll be back again tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern. If you haven't, take a moment, make sure you like, subscribe, and most importantly, share a conservative message to your friends and family. See you tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern. This is the CASHLOREN Show.